Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Opera San Antonio's Beyond the Production. It's our bi-weekly interview series where we take artists off the stage and into the community to share their experiences in the operatic arts. My name is Lauren Meeker, and I'm the General and Artistic Director of Opera San Antonio. And joining me, as always, today is my magical partner in crime. This is our music director, Francesco Miliotto. Hi, Francesco.
How are you, Lauren?
I am excellent today. How are you?
Doing well. Well rested.
I'm guessing it's a little colder in Chicago than it is where I am in Texas right now. Sorry.
It's freezing. It's like 20 degrees. Terrible.
Oh, well, if you're in 20-degree weather or if you're in warmer weather, like I am, say, here in Texas, I want to thank you all for joining us today, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching after the fact, say, through our YouTube channel or through our Facebook posts. These interviews do remain active on our social media platforms in perpetuity. Our guest today, and I want to know what his weather is like when we talk about where he is today in just a second, is the amazingly talented Christopher Ocasek, and I'm going to have him join our feed right now. Hi, Christopher.
Hey, hello.
Hey, Christopher.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are both of you?
Excellent. So Francesco and I are going to do a bit of how we know you and from where, because we've discovered that there are a lot of overlapping intersections of cities and family history and where we've worked today, which I think is really thrilling. I met you for the first time, I think, through Washington National Opera. Yes?
Yep. I was on music staff, conducting staff, and you were directing, I think it was Carmen, wasn't it?
Yes. It was fantastic. An enormous production in my directorial debut there. So that was thrilling. Yeah.
That was a great production. I love that.
Thanks. So what we've discovered is not only do you and I have Washington National in common, but there's a couple of other close roots here today.
Yep. So so I'm in Vienna, but my father actually is from where Francesco is right now, Chicago. And born and raised, and he's very proud of it and very proud of the Bears. But he also lives in New Braunfels, just right outside of San Antonio. So we have this connection here between San Antonio, Chicago, Francesco, my dad, Yaksamash, dad. And,
there you go.
So it's cool. Small world.
I have a question. We never asked these questions, but since you brought up the Bears, are you a sports fan? And
I know nothing about sports. I know nothing. I'm terrible.
Oh my God.
I know. And I try to pretend, but it's really bad.
Oh my goodness. Well, all right, that's fine. I forgive you. I love sports, but it's okay. But I think it would be really, we like to ask, and Lauren makes a point of asking all the time, and I love this question. Sort of, what was your first exposure to the arts, and what attracted you to music or to whatever art you were interested in at first? What was that moment?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think I was a really lucky kid because I had a lot of diversity in music when I was a kid. My father actually played the accordion when I was really, really young. And my grandfather had played the accordion, and it kind of passed down, I think, through the generations. And my mother would always play guitar and sing, and her genre of music was Dolly Parton and George Jones, and the country gospel. And so I really had a really mixed background when it came to music, and I think that carries through to today, where I can appreciate lots of different kinds of music. But I didn't have an opera background. I didn't have a classical music background. And all of that came as I started to step into places where, I was more into that.
Question. Accordion, is that just because of the line of Czech? You said you just told us before your dad is 100% Czech.
He's Czech.
And I mean, is that like, I mean, I am just imagining like a tiny little band of people with odd instruments and accordion. Like, was there anything like that, or did he just play himself? Or, I mean,
Well,
like Hungarian traditions, anything like that? Is that something that you feel close to, or like you have in your ear?
It's funny that you say that, because we had the accordion in our house growing up, but it kind of lived in the case much of the time as I was a little bit older. But I mean, early on, I think he played more. But I just recently saw a picture. I think it was of my great grandfather with the concertina.
Yeah.
And he, I mean, it's a really old picture, but that's why I think that this tradition kind of carried down. And it was my great grandparents that emigrated from what was then Czechoslovakia to the U.S. And so I think that tradition came over from Eastern Europe. Yeah.
Do you feel a connection to Smetana, any Eastern European composer, anything like that? I'm always interested in this because I'm so Italian, and I just love, like, when you feel super comfortable in a language, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. There's just something about it, and I think that's, not that we can't do any other type of music, but do you have a particular affinity for, like, do you listen to the Moldau on repeat? I don't know.
Every day, Francesco. No, it's a really interesting question. I think there is something that speaks to me about the music. There's a soul to Czech and to this Eastern European music, and Hungary, and the borders were all mishmashed at one point. So what is Czech, what is Hungarian?
Right.
But I think there is something that speaks to that side of me. I think you're absolutely right.
I think so.
I'm going to throw in a little bit of love that you're getting here. This is from Veronica, who's on our staff, and she says she loves that library behind you. I have to say, we've seen a lot of libraries in our Zoom world, and yours is pretty epic there, Christopher.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Well, hi. Hello.
And a regular follower, Virginia, who's with us, is really excited to hear what all you have to say today, as am I as well. I think you're an extraordinary artist. So I'm excited to introduce you to everyone. So I know you had said when we were preparing this video that, you were surrounded by this music, and really you were busy sort of outside playing in the lawn and not connecting like music to something that would necessarily become an integral part of your life until the piano came onto the scene. And can you talk a little bit about how that came into your family's picture, and how that then influenced you, and when you started playing the piano?
Yeah, absolutely. I need to clarify, and we're going to jump on your lawn comment so people understand what that means. So when I was growing up, we built our own house. But
I didn't know that. Okay, great.
It was all dirt, like all around it. So my brother and I, we spent our summers picking rocks. So my dad is probably laughing right now, but we spent our summer picking rocks and throwing them in a big barrel and then taking them to a rock pile.
Oh my goodness.
And I think that built my character.
I was going to say, there's nothing more character building than getting a kid outside and playing in the dirt, literally.
Right. On the more musical side, however, my brother, I started taking the piano. And so I think I got interested because I was always interested in whatever my brother was doing. Okay. And I started taking piano right after him, and then that kind of took off, and my parents saw, I think, some potential there. And they ended up finding, this is a funny story, they ended up finding this real piano, because I had started on a keyboard, a Casio keyboard. And they thought, okay, he needs to have a real instrument now. So they found in this church a bright canary yellow, upright grand, that weighed 1 million pounds. And I think they got it for like $20-$30.
Wow.
And that became the instrument I learned piano on. And that's
incredible.
Wow. Canary yellow. Wow.
Funny story. I think it still lives in the basement of the house I grew up in.
Wow.
No.
Wow. Well, I'm going to give a couple more shout outs here. I'm going to backtrack just for a second. James McCutcheon is actually on our board. And thank you, James, as always, for watching. And what he's referencing here, which is our first opera that he's experienced was semi-staged with the San Antonio Symphony, was Rusalka. That actually predates both Francesco and I. But yes, there's another little tidbit of connectivity here in San Antonio, which is great. And welcome. We have a newcomer watching from New York, producer of Queen's Opera Theater and a native of San Antonio. That's phenomenal. Yay, we love new viewers.
Great.
That's really wonderful. Okay, so Chris, when you're involved with the canary piano, and maybe Francesco, you can talk a little bit about this too. Like you start playing an instrument and then what?
I think that this is it, and I really want to talk about this because now that we're talking about high school level. I mean, were you like me, like the only sort of classical pianist person there? I mean, I was exposed, like if I were to describe my high school years, they would be learning how to do jazz, playing in every ensemble, every quartet, every trio. But really, like, as far as like, advancedness for harmony and whatever, normally because we're pianists, were you like sort of on a little island of practicing classical things and other stuff, and then of course being involved in everything else? What was your high school classical pianist? I don't think I've ever talked about this to anybody. I've never talked about this to anybody. I'd be very interested to know what your experience was in high school as a pianist.
Gosh, well, it was just yesterday, I know, but
fair point.
I was really fortunate because when I went to high school, I had I was in the choir scene. I was a choir kid, and I sang in everything. And when I was a freshman, I came in, and the choir director saw that I had piano skills and gave me a chance to start accompanying the choir. So I think I learned a lot about being a musician and listening and just frankly accompanying and collaborating from those experiences. And for those 4 years that kind of took off. And when the second year I was there, a new choir director came in. Her name was Charlotte Colby, and she was like a friend to me. And she gave me so many opportunities because she saw potential in a young musician. And so I started conducting. And that is how I kind of weaved my way into conducting, was through conducting the little ensembles and the chamber choirs. And then once in a while, I even got an opportunity to conduct something a little bit larger. So.
Great. Wow. I'm going to interject really quickly on our other channel. So I can't display it here, but someone who we all know and love, Michael Chioldi, is watching and says, "Hey, everyone."
Hi, Michael.
Ciao, Michael.
Hi, Michael. Big shout out and lots of love to you. So can you talk a little bit more, Christopher? I think you were thrown some pretty interesting repertoire, even at the high school level.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know how I even made it through, but somehow, some way, conducting ended up putting a chamber ensemble between the orchestra and the choir together. And the first thing I ever conducted with an orchestra was Mozart's Lacrimosa from the Requiem. And I probably subdivided it way too much. And I, looking back, but I remember thinking, wow, I'm really in over my head on this whole thing. But it worked out in the end. And it's been hopefully uphill ever since then. So that was a fun first experience, but terrifying, just terrifying.
Oh, it's amazing. But you stayed with singing all the way through high school, even though while you were playing, you were still performing in the choirs, and you were still thinking about that when you started to apply for colleges and all of that. Can you talk about the transition from high school into college and where you were there and what you did and focused on there and how focus might have changed?
Yeah. Being a choir kid and doing all of the solo and ensemble things and singing in different events and whatever things that you do as a high schooler, I was like, okay, my calling is going to be choral conducting, and the way to get to choral conducting is going to be through studying singing, because you couldn't get an undergrad choral conducting career. You couldn't get
of course.
As an undergrad, so you need an instrument. So I thought, okay. So I applied and I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Shout out Badgers. And fun fact, my first voice teacher when I was at UW-Madison was the great, wonderful Sam Handley.
Oh my
I just have to say,
God.
if anybody else other than Francesco is watching in Chicago, if Amanda Majeski's out there, somebody
Shout out to both of them.
Sam Handley,
Yes.
he's getting a shout out.
Love it.
And Sam was, I just remember, I looked up to him so much, and I still do. And he was the coolest teacher, but man, did we learn a lot in that setting when we were all together. But yeah, fun fact. So
I love that.
So yeah, I started off as a voice major, and I was doing vocal performance, and then I was also starting piano because you have to do piano as an undergrad. And I thought, okay, it's good for me to continue anyway. But at the same time, I started to get more interested in conducting. I started going to orchestra rehearsals. And I just became fascinated by this world because I wasn't an orchestra kid in high school. I was a choir kid.
Exactly.
And I became more and more fascinated. And I think what drew me to it the most was that I didn't know that much about it. And I just saw this world of like exploration. So I like to joke that I went to the dark side, and I went to instrumental conducting, and I went to kind of that way. And one thing led to another. I ended up switching to a piano performance degree. So I'm glad I had done all that piano all those years because that seemed to be more in line with instrumental conducting. And then one thing leads to another, and somebody says, okay, this kid, he's a singer, he's a pianist, and he's studying conducting. Let's throw an opera at him. And just like the Lacrimosa, I was just thrown an opera, and here, go do it. It was a Singspiel. It was Mozart's Impresario. And what a great opportunity when you're like 19, 20, like, here, figure it out. But I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. So.
Yeah. Well, our audiences have familiarity with that particular piece because it's one of the films that we just produced. And what I think is so incredible is I think it's never done the same way twice. It's so adaptable to the times and who's singing and where. And so we have great love for that piece here for sure. Absolutely.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, and this is also, I love that we're like on the same sort of trajectory of timeline. This is so great. So when you start conducting at university, did you have a mentor for just conducting? Did you watch videos? Like, I am mostly self-taught. Like, I mostly put ensembles together. We did readings. I scotch taped parts together so people could have things to read because we didn't have like libraries and libraries of stuff, in 1854 when I was starting, you know what I mean? So like it's sorry, that's a joke because that's Lauren.
That's my favorite year. Everybody knows that. It's my favorite year.
But for me, I'm always interested to know because as you start to grow as a conductor, it's all about your interpretation. You're trying to develop yourself as a musician and your levels of collaboration and maximizing the room. But when you're a kid, you have no idea. Yeah. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be going to the right instead of to the left. You know what I mean? Did you have someone to help guide that and watch you, or did you watch your own videos? What was your sort of development early as a conductor, especially when you switch to orchestral conducting? Because we know you get judged super hard in the first 10 seconds of like being up there.
Prove yourself right away.
Yeah, prove yourself right away.
I'll start by saying, if there's any people that are thinking about getting into conducting, I don't think there's any one way to become a conductor. I mean, there's rarely one way to do anything, but conducting is particularly a strange thing because in order to get into programs, you often need experience, but to get experience, you need to get into a program. So it's, how do you get started? And that's exactly it. The way I got into it is there was a conducting teacher. His name was David Becker. He was the head of orchestras there.
There you go.
At Wisconsin-Madison. And he was 6'6", 280, giant guy, very intimidating. And he was, very serious. Yeah. Everybody respected him. Everybody still does. He's a wonderful, wonderful conductor. Mm-hmm. I knocked on his door and I said, as a, 19-year-old or 18-year-old, I want to study conducting privately with you. And, he's very, very serious man. And he said, take the beginning conducting class. And that was the end of it. So I think a day later, I knocked on his door during his office hours again. And I said, Professor Becker, I want to study conducting with you. And there was this moment of silence. He said, you can sign up for the advanced conducting class with Dr. Smith. And I said, no, thank you, but thank you for your time today. Next day, I knock on his door. I want to study conducting with you. I don't know where I got this gumption to do this, or whether, but longer silence this time, and finally said, okay, here's the number you can use to register. We start next semester. We'll figure out the time. And he took me on under his wing, and I learned boeings. I learned score reduction. I learned harmony. I learned transpositions. And then he put me in as the orchestral librarian.
Oh,
and
wow.
I did bowings. And I remember the first concert I ever had to bow by myself was the stands were 8, 7, 6,
oh my
5,
God.
5. And it was Shostakovich.
Oh my God.
And Scheherazade.
Oh my God. I'm having a heart attack.
I have very important questions, Christopher, because we have a lot of people who are watching that don't speak Opera Insider. So can you help define two things for me? A, what do you mean by bowings? And B, when you say the stands were 8, 6, 5, 5, or any of those numbers, can you describe those two things for us?
Absolutely. Bowings are it's not by chance in most orchestras that the bows, what they use to play on the string instruments, that these bows go in the same direction at the same time. On occasion, sometimes we say purposely, we don't care, which way they go.
Free bowing, yeah.
Free bowing, yeah. But in most orchestras, there's symbols written. And those symbols, if you want to be true to the copyrights, are erased for every conductor that comes in. And they're written in by hand. Every time the bow goes down, there's a little symbol for it. Every time the bow goes up, and then phrasing and slurring is all written in pencil in every part. And in some orchestras, it depends on the size of the orchestra, but there are 8, in this orchestra, there were 8 copies of just the first violin parts. So when I said 8, 7, 6, whatever it was, there were 8 stands, so two players at each stand, so 16 players, but each needed their own copy of those bowings, and somebody has to write those in according to what the conductor, envisions.
Shout out to all librarians in the world.
Yes, it's a huge task.
Respect. You only need to do that job one day to have respect for what orchestra librarians do, in addition to a million other things they do, but. So that's what those bowings are, and then that's how many copies that you had to do. So you end up doing 25, 30 copies of a score that's
all handwritten,
60 pages long.
Yeah, and actually Veronica just chimed in because she's a violist and also has conducted.
She knows.
So she knows.
She knows how long Shostakovich 5 is.
And also, I want to go back really quickly because Peck, I think this is a very important comment. You didn't go to the dark side. You finally saw the glorious light of orchestra and instrumental conducting.
Shout out to orchestras, yes.
Very, very true. That's phenomenal. Okay, so that was like your gateway. You were shepherded under his wing and started working in the library. You're also getting the opportunity, which I had as well, and I don't know if this is the case with everyone. You started working on some professional gigs while you were still in school as well, yes?
Yeah. That first impresario thing led to a collaboration with the opera department. And again, I consider myself super fortunate, that I had professors that gave me these opportunities, because it's not always possible in certain institutions or in certain circumstances. And I had the opera director let me do this impresario, and then that turned into this shorter version, this quartet version of Carmen, La Tragédie du Carmen. And great piece. Weird timpani part that takes over for the cello.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. It is so weird.
It's so hard to hear it. And then the singer has to come in with their
Okay, you guys just went someplace special.
Sorry.
Long short, the habanera, dum, ba bum, 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 ba. It's cellos in the original. However, in this smaller version,
the Peter
they
Brook,
had to give it to the timpanist. And if there's anything that you can learn about timpani, in some situations, the pitch center, you can hear the note. It's very clearly that note. In other situations or in other acoustics, it is just a wash of that could be any one of 3 or 4 notes. That was the acoustic situation we were in. So.
Got it.
But anyway,
your love for enjoying each other's stress over that particular choice in instrument.
Anyway, I got sidetracked. But
so professional gigs.
That led to my first professional gig, which I think is really funny. It was Camelot, and it was at the Civic Center with members of the Madison Symphony Orchestra. And this is before their big renovation, the Madison Opera and everything. But fun fact about that was that our Merlin was the one great George Wendt, who was Norm from Cheers.
I love that show so much.
And so I remember passing him, and I thought, oh, I've seen you on TV. That's really cool.
Did people, when he came into rehearsal, did everybody yell Norm?
Some people did, yes.
Of course. One of my favorite things, which I think all of us would echo on this interview today, one of my favorite things about our art form is when we get to do pieces like Camelot or a Candide or a Showboat, that sort of crossover repertoire where all of a sudden you're putting artists from 3 or 4 different backgrounds or strengths in the room. So when you're mashing up, TV stars with opera singers, with actors, with dancers, those sort of fabulous experiences just elevate the entire process, and I think hold really special places in our hearts.
Yeah, I agree. And it unifies the artists. We get rid of these boundaries of classical, jazz, musical theater, and we say artists.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, now we're at Camelot. We're finishing school. You're finishing university in Madison. Sorry, I'm Canadian. We call it university, not college. And so, it comes the next decision, the next step. What is the next step? How do you make that step? What did you decide to do? And then I know you ended up in a completely different state with, let's just say, completely different weather. So how did you get from Madison and saying, and that's saying a lot. All of that stuff happened for you in Madison in the short time of a degree, it's quite impressive. So what were the next things that you did to sort of further along conducting, and how did you get to Florida?
Yeah, I was that kid that was in the practice room with like the blinders on. So I think I had to do an extra year because I switched from voice to piano.
Sure.
So I ended up doing the 5-year program, and I think I went out maybe half a dozen times in that entire time because I was in a practice room. And there's wonderful things you learn in a practice room, but there's also life experience out there that is important to get as well.
Right.
But I was kind of burned out, and so I ended up taking a break, and I was teaching voice, and I was living in Madison. I had a part-time job at a coffee shop, and then in Madison, and then one thing led to another, and I was offered an opportunity to open a coffee shop in Milwaukee. And so I thought, because the person who had built the coffee shop I worked at Madison had this space in Milwaukee. And he said, do you want to run this coffee shop? I've seen your organization, because I was doing some producing for this fundraising event called the Night on Broadway in my old high school. Mm-hmm. And he had seen how I worked and how my brain worked. And he's like, I think he'd be good to run this business. And so I didn't know anything about coffee. And I ended up running this coffee shop and expanding it to 2 coffee shops.
Are they still there? Can I go to them now?
They're not there. They're not there anymore. But it was this weird, like, divergence of here's another life skill. And you know what? As a conductor, you need to have business skills. You need to know, finance. I mean, both of you are shaking your heads because you absolutely have to know it.
All artists need to know it. It should be taught in school.
It should be.
Should
Taxes,
be taught in school.
Business, it should be taught in school. Yeah.
All of it. So, that forced me to figure it all out, and it was fun. I drank a lot of coffee. And to this day, I drink a lot of coffee. And
you're going to be so close, man. Oh, yeah.
So that thing, and then I ended up doing my master's degree. So I left the coffee shop and I did my master's degree in Florida State University. And I studied orchestral conducting there with an amazing teacher, Alexander Jimenez. And I also was involved with the opera there because Doug Fisher, who's the head of the opera department there, played for Marilyn Horne and Federica Fonstada, and he gave me some opportunities there as well. So again, I feel so grateful in my life that I had people who gave me these opportunities, and that's how I built some experience.
So I feel, Christopher, like all of us in our own ways come through school, whether it's undergraduate or graduate or even certificate level. At some point as an artist, you're making this decision about, okay, what is life outside of school? And again, every single person's path and every conductor's path, I think, is really different. What was your experience once you had graduated from Florida State?
I had graduated in a weird year. And that was 2009 with my master's degree. And it was right after this bad economy in 2008. And there were no jobs for anybody. It was just really bad. And I had remembered seeing these pictures in a German class I had taken when I was in an undergrad. And of like these cool people in Germany with like boom boxes on their shoulders and like, oh, Germany's a cool place. I also had never had a chance to travel outside of the country. So I was just like, it feels right. I follow my gut all the time. I always have. And I thought, okay, my gut is saying just pick up and go. And I sold everything I owned except for my scores, which I sent back to my family. I took some clothes with me and I moved to Berlin. And I've been in Europe ever since. And I ended up getting, you have to have a way to stay there. So I ended up teaching English to get a work visa. And through that, one thing led to another. I started a small chamber orchestra in Berlin. And then I was doing that work, and then traveling. I would go to these closed rehearsals at the Berlin Phil to keep, seeing things, learning things, and it was this awesome experience. Ended up
all under Simon Rattle.
Simon Rattle, yeah, he was the music director at
all
that
under
time.
Simon. Okay.
I did see rehearsals though with a lot of.
I'm sure with a million conductors.
Yeah. And then one thing led to another, and I moved to Paris. And when I lived in Paris, then I started doing more assistant conducting and cover conducting back in the U.S. People had made the connection that, okay, he lives in Paris, he speaks French, and so he must know lots of stuff about French music. And I did know a lot, but they were offering me jobs, and the first job I had was covering Emmanuel Villaume at Juilliard. And,
I love Emmanuel Villaume.
He's wonderful. He
love that guy.
And I learned so much about French style from him and other conductors that I've worked with since. And just you kind of absorb when you're a cover conductor or when you're an assistant conductor. You're working, you're doing all the work, but you're also observing, and you have to kind of mimic. In a way, you have to do things that maybe aren't as natural for you because that is what the musicians are expecting.
Thank you for saying that, because being an assistant conductor is a particular skill of a particular thing that you need to represent when the conductor is not there.
Yeah.
And I mean that I do the same here at Lyric or wherever we are. And I think that's like it's an unsung skill that we need to adapt. It's not the same as when you're the conductor of the show and you have assistants to be an assistant. But saying things like that, I think, is important. It's the same way that like being on stage in a compromario role beside somebody that you really respect and learning. And that's the same thing that we're doing in the pit. I mean, are there particular things that you found, like watching anyone, any special conductor? Were there any moments like watching a conductor at the Berlin Phil or in a rehearsal or hearing something or working with Emmanuel anywhere, like something that was like things that you take away? I have many like one-liners and moments of orchestral music and things that I will never forget from watching and observing. Do you have anything like that from those moments of working as an assistant that you keep with you today on the forefront of your musical language?
Oh my gosh, I've got so many, I can't even go into all of them. But the first one that kind of stands out in my mind is, I did a lot of Massenet operas with Patrick Fonelier, who's a Massenet expert.
Yes,
and, yeah, and he's got it in his soul. It's just it comes out. But every once in a while, he would say things to me, and he'd talk about the phrasing. And, we'd talk about the endings of phrasings and how in this, Massenet is a very delicate style.
Yes.
There are moments where it's not delicate.
Of course.
But if you compare the French language with the French music, there is an exact correlation that you have to be sensitive to.
Absolutely.
In Manon, for example, like there's phrasing that has to happen that fits with the language.
Right.
And I learned that from him because, there would just be moments where he would correct something in the orchestra and I'd say, because that fits
the lines being sung. Yeah.
That fits the line. So lots of moments like that. And Emmanuel equally. So many things.
Great.
Absolutely.
So you're doing obviously getting such a wealth of information as an assistant conductor, and you start working with Emmanuel. And I know that eventually you come back over here to the United States, and that's where Washington National Opera comes into the picture, and San Francisco Opera, both of where you've been on staff. Do you think you've had a big break, Christopher? That's like the next hurdle. If there's a hurdle, there's like 3 hurdles in our lives. It's like, do you go into the arts? Okay. Then you make the choice. Yes. Then you get degrees and you go, okay, what am I going to do with these? And then the next thing is, once you've sort of come up on the end of that assisting cycle, which was true for me, true for Francesco, how do you start to make the next step?
Yeah, I mean, you never know where the next step is going to take you, but you always have to do your best in wherever you are because somebody's watching somewhere.
Yeah,
that's a really
great point.
Never throw off a project because you're angry, or never make a bad impression, never burn a bridge. Like that's really important. Those assistant jobs started to lead to more principal conducting, which is the direction I wanted to go. And that led to conducting Marilla, for example, and Washington National, the Carmen, actually. I did the educational shows. And that started to lead to some other opportunities. And, I had covered in different places, and people, it's posted, who's the cover conductor in certain places. And I had gotten a call one day from the Armenian National Opera saying, we saw that you were a cover conductor on Manon at the San Francisco Opera. Can you come in and start the rehearsal process in 8 days? And I hadn't done the opera in 6 to 8 months. It's not an easy opera by any means.
No.
And I thought,
why not?
All right,
yeah.
Great. And
8 days, tons of time.
8 days, sure. Let's get it back up. So that one thing led to another. I ended up going there. Their English is very minimal. My Armenian, 0. My Russian, quite basic, almost 0. But through gesture, through connecting music, after one rehearsal, it was like family, that we had known each other for a long time, and we just started working like this. And that orchestra hadn't played French repertoire outside of Carmen in 20 years.
Wow.
They had their standard repertoire that they, as a repertory orchestra, that they played, but they didn't have French repertoire. So it was a lot of work, but everybody worked together, and we've been close ever since. And I did Carmen in Dubai with them. We did Manon for the Sommet de Francophonie, the Francophonie day, the summit, and they put it in a different country every year. I was 1 day away from meeting Charles Aznavour. He was giving a concert there in Yerevan, where I was, the next day, and then he passed away.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. And so that makes me sad as well. But
quite extraordinary where operatic careers can take people. I mean, you and I have talked a bit about how we both love the travel that's associated with it. I'm sure Francesco would echo those remarks.
Absolutely.
And I know it's taken you to places like Beijing and Madrid and Kazakhstan. I mean, really incredible places that, you know, in other jobs, you wouldn't necessarily ever have the chance to just go to those countries for work, let alone see them, you know, on a vacation.
Yeah, and you know what is beautiful about that, and I think you would echo this, is that when you are in a new location, you are in a new culture.
Yeah.
And I think that makes us all rounder, more empathetic human beings when we are able to literally be in somebody else's shoes or in somebody else's opera house, or, you know, finding out what dinner is like after a show in a different city, or what their customs are that are important to them. And then if you go in with an open mind, you find that usually they invite you with the same openness, and it's a learning experience. And I think that's, you know, even if you don't have the opportunity to travel, really nobody does right now, just learning about other cultures, and putting yourself in a place where you can just openly try to take information in about other cultures. I think this makes us a more global community, which is important.
Absolutely. And
Michael's saying, so enjoying this conversation with these great artists.
Hey, Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Michael. Thank you.
So, you know, getting back, I mean, we're talking about all of this wonderful travel and all of these wonderful things in different places. But of course, for the last year, we've all been sort of hunkered in place. But, you know, and I think it's important for people to know how COVID has affected each artist in different ways. So what were your plans for 2020? What did you have on the docket? How was that affected? How was it affecting you and all of that? I think it's good to know, because someone that is working so hard, you know, like all of us, and always so busy and running around, and we have our schedules, but where were you when it happened, and you know, when we got shut down, and what were the things that were affected in 2020?
Yeah, it's certainly a crazy time, and hard for so many people for so many different reasons. I was in Vienna. I was just about to go conduct La Traviata, and I was preparing everything for that, and I was supposed to leave, I think, the next week or 5 days from then. We were going to do a Traviata and then a Carmen, and then everything started happening, and we thought, well, what if borders start closing? It was right at that time where borders in Europe started closing, and so we kind of just waited. We kept planning, but we kind of waited and for the ticket, and sure enough, at the end of the day, everything was canceled, and it's been pretty much canceled ever since. But that I think that brings me to what I'm doing now, which is, you know, with canceled contracts, I had time finally to you know, catch up with people and to try to check in with people, and you know, so I'd call friends and colleagues, and we would talk, and I started noticing that the conversations would always go to the same place, and validly so. And it would be, you know, catch up, and then pause in the conversation. And Chris, I don't know how I'm going to put food on the table a month from now. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. Or I live in New York City. I can maybe cover rent for 6 months, but this is an expensive place, or San Francisco, or wherever you live that's expensive. You know, nobody expects this to happen. Nobody is ready for a pandemic. Like, maybe now we'll be more frugal and save, or I don't know, but you know, certainly this cut the legs off of the artist community, from under the artist community, very severely. And you know, we know everybody is affected by it. So then I was starting to look for resources, and I thought, well, where are artists going? Like, where's our safety? You know, all their jobs are canceled, all their contracts are canceled. Couldn't find answers. I would talk to people. Some people told me they were eligible for unemployment as artists. Some people were not.
Yeah.
The $600 a week disappeared. That was helping artists. God bless them. There are these artist relief organizations who tried to send checks and would do that. And then eventually many of them dried up because there was such a need. So where was our community going? And I was losing sleep over it. I physically could not sleep. And I thought, there has to be something for us. There needs to be a change. So fast forward to what I'm doing now. So I, with a very amazing board of directors and a great team, put together an artist relief resource. And it's called ClickCoach, and you can find it at clickcoach.org. And what it is it's an online platform of basically a video hosting platform. So imagine, woohoo, website. You're very advanced here. That's awesome.
We aim to please.
Awesome, yeah. But what it is it's a place for professional artists to have a safety net. Mm-hmm. And artists don't pay anything. That's not what this is about. And it's not for profit. It is nonprofit. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And in its most basic sense, it's a video hosting platform. All the videos are either about musical works or topics, and they're all 10 to 15 minutes, every single one, because we can all talk for 3 hours about a work, but who's going to sit through 3 hours? And let's distill that conversation. So yeah, I would.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Chris, you actually shared a really fantastic promo video for ClickCoach, which I would love to share with our audience right now. I think it gives everybody a chance to see the kinds of artists that you're working with and a little bit more about how the platform works. So let's go ahead and go into that, and then we can talk a bit more about those artists and how it's evolving into the future.
Great.
Hey, I'm Christopher Ocasek, conductor and an artist and art supporter like so many of you. Welcome to ClickCoach. Help is finally here. This whole project is based around supporting classical, jazz, and musical theater artists. We've created something really cool, and I want to tell you about it. An amazing financial and informational resource. A space where professional artists, instrumentalists, singers, musicologists, conductors, composers, and so on, create 10 to 15-minute videos delving into musical topics and how-to discussions on musical works, organized by movement, aria, lead, and so on. Imagine a mixture of advice, tips and tricks, demonstrations, talk of difficult passages and how to get through them, interpretation, professional opinions. The possibilities are endless. We're creating a community collective of distilled and curated musical discussions by professionals who know in the form of accessible videos. Here's how it works. Our team curates and edits the content. Each 10 to 15 minute video is then priced at $1.99 US plus fees. No subscriptions, and the artist who creates the video either chooses to receive nearly 75% of that $1.99, or they choose to help others by forwarding their proceeds to our assistance fund. 1% of every video sale also goes towards supporting low-income, socioeconomically disadvantaged, and underprivileged groups, making this project all that much more important for the community. What you're seeing is just the start. 50 world-recognized artist partners have come together to launch this with us to support the arts community, to tell you, the professional artist, a help resource is here and that you can also upload videos to support yourself and support your community, and to join us in building this amazing research and educational library. To be this charitable, ClickCoach is designed as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, complete with a board of directors and a host of amazing volunteers, all supporting artists. That means the organization and the artists on whom we focus need financial help to make all of this possible. Donations can be made quickly and easily on our donations page, and I encourage you to help us rally donations. So come, get on board. Our nonprofit needs you to make this succeed. Come watch curated videos of great discussions. Upload your own videos. You don't need to ask permission. Learn something new today. And please support the classical, jazz, and musical theater communities like no one has ever done before.
Yay!
Ooh. It's a lot of my face
Congratulations.
to look at. I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh,
I
no.
love your face. Are you kidding me? So full disclosure, Christopher contacted me quite early on and asked if I would participate. And I was very happy to do so. I just sounded like not only such an extraordinary concept, and a wonderful resource, but also the kinds of artists that you were collecting and the future power that a platform like this could have in a number of different directions was really appealing to me. And Francesco has now learned that he too can participate.
I too can easily participate.
So tell us a little bit more, Christopher, about how it's going and how the feedback has been and where you hope ClickCoach will take you.
Yeah, thank you for playing the video. It's been an amazing ride. We just launched this thing on the 15th of January. So it's really, really new. So anybody that's watching that thinks, oh, this is a cool idea and I want to find more about it, go to clickcoach.org, check it out, purchase videos. They're all super accessible. There are bundles of videos together. For example, Chris Maltman talking about Don Giovanni in a bundle, like buy 5 videos of him talking about separate works together is really cool. Martin Katz talking about Frauenliebe und Leben, the whole set. You can buy it together and learn that from professionals. And that's the whole purpose, is that professionals can come. They don't need to get pre-permission. If they're professional artists, they can come and share their opinions in 10 to 15-minute videos. They record them with their own device. We do some basic editing and we make it look and sound good. But basically, it's a place for artists to come, and then we create this profile. As you saw how people were presented. We do that for every artist. That's what my team is doing. And then we put those on our site. And what we're doing is we're creating a resource for artists, and we can get 75% of that video back to the artist, which is huge. Or artists can say, I want to be part of this, and I want to forward my funds to help other artists, to help the organization. And so that's a private choice that every artist makes. But we create this revenue, but long-term, as Lauren said, what we're doing is we're creating this awesome resource, giving access to the world of professional artists. And so, there's so many amazing artists like Lauren and James Gaffigan, Jamie Barton, and Lise Lindstrom and Leah Crocetto, Jake Hagee. I mean, it's a super cool list. And that's just the start. Those are the people who came together to say, yeah, I believe in this. Let's launch this thing together. Now what we need is we need customers. We need people to tell people about it. Follow us on social media. It's always clickcoach.org. Just one word on all of the social media platforms.
Smart.
Because that's how you stay in touch with us. Donate. There's a donation page. We desperately need donations to make this thing run. It's a starter business. Yeah. And there's a budget, and we need to help artists. And this is a great way, if you can donate, it's a great way to make your donation count. You know that we're able to support artists with this project, and it's a great use of a donation. So that's incredibly helpful. But buying videos is helpful. And then professional artists, TikTok, it's awesome time. Like, this is a place where you can upload up videos, and all the things are listed on the website of how to do
and Diana Pena, again, on our other channel, she's a member of our board. Hi, Diana, is asking if the video is on, I think she means my website for sharing. It's not on my website, but you can very easily, for anybody who's watching, go to clickcoach.org, and that's shown at the bottom of our screen right now. Or you can look for ClickCoach on any just about social media channel you can think of, and you can find access to that video information quite easily. And Diana just said she will donate today.
Oh,
so
Diana,
you have another lover, which is great. Thank you, Diana. Your strength and support of artists and art organizations is much, much appreciated.
And I hear that there's a special deal going on right now till the end of January. Buy one, get one.
Yes, actually, we're trying to bring in people and to support artists. And one thing we have, there's a comment system on all the videos too. So one thing we're offering through all of January is a chance for somebody to come in, buy their first video, make a comment on the video. And then if they do those two things, then we send them a code the next day for a free video. And it's a way to get the community involved. And it's a way for people to discover that we're here. So, it's important at the beginning of any business, like the coffee shop that I did, to get the word out. And that has to happen through our community, through things like this. And thank you for letting me talk about this today. It's a great resource for artists, and it's done wholeheartedly with artists in mind, just to support artists. No, there's nothing hidden. Transparency is one of our core values. Like, I just want people to know that this is wholeheartedly for artists. And a place for professionals to come, upload, and for everybody to learn. We're all learning, always.
Yeah.
And a great place to do that and learn from others.
And you mentioned that 1% of all of the revenue that you get goes to. Can you expand just a little bit on where those groups are, who you're donating to, in what, like, is that in Vienna? Is it in America? Or is it various groups? What does that go to?
Various groups. Actually, it's something, with a board of directors, you have extra accountability. And I think that's beautiful about a nonprofit, is that, what we're going to do is every video sale that happens, we take 1% from that video sale. And if, we can become more profitable, that number can go up. But we take a look as a board of directors at the end of the year, and we say, who are the groups that are trying to reach out and trying to help, who fall under an socioeconomically disadvantaged or low income, or whatever the groups might be. It could be an inner city group that is on a shoestring budget, trying to get content, trying to put a music program together.
Instruments, anything,
instruments, whatever it is. If we can support, we identify somebody that fits with, that we can help. And that allows us to then reach our community, because as artists, we are nothing without the community that surrounds us.
Yeah.
And, we have an opportunity to use innovation, use digital resources to connect. And we can do that by taking a portion of these video sales and reaching out to our community and giving back.
Excellent.
I think that's phenomenal, really and truly. Diana's chiming in one last time to say, thankful for you, Chris. And I echo those sentiments completely. I think a lot of artists are in need of help like this. And Andrew Ward, an artist who works with us frequently in Compromario roles and in our chorus, has often been with us live. It's been a while since we've seen you live, Andrew, so welcome back. And I'm so glad you're enjoying this conversation as well. Chris, I have all of the best hopes for you, for all of us, as we return, hopefully in the near future, to live performances. And also for ClickCoach, to just see how it can grow and support in the months and years to come. I wish you nothing but the best on that front.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And it was a lot of fun today.
Fantastic. Well, we always have a great time. I learn things about people who I feel like I already know intimately. And we all get to share what we're working on and how the industry is moving forward. And I think that's so positive. So thank you for being a wonderful guest today. And of course, I want to thank our viewers for watching, whether you're watching live with us now or on one of our channels where our videos do remain up in perpetuity. A heads up to everybody watching, we are going to shift some gears here at Opera San Antonio, because we are ramping up for live performances of Lucia de Lammermoor this spring. So that's right. We're headed back into performance, fingers crossed. We'll be at the Tobin Center on May 6th and 8th, 2021. And we'll be releasing more information soon on that production, including how to get tickets and our health and safety measures for our artists, our staff, and of course, our patrons. So stay tuned. We'll be releasing more information soon. But in light of this, we're going to break away from our traditional bi-weekly Beyond the Production events and evolve this series to start interviewing guests and staff and artists who are coming in specifically for Lucia. So we're going to give you behind the scenes, beyond the production specific to the show that we're producing this spring. And we hope you'll enjoy getting to see this inside perspective that'll really open up the production in a new and more intimate way. So thank you again for joining us today. And I hope everybody who's with us will have a wonderful afternoon and a fabulous weekend. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Francesco, again, and Chris. And we will see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye, Chris. Thanks so much for coming.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, Lauren.